This island has all the ingredients of being an idyllic place in the sun. Famous for its colonial architecture, cultural history, mojitos, cigars, painters, musicians, and old cars. And one of the least expensive Caribbean islands for tourists to visit. However, there is more. It is a very unpredictable place. In fact, I was surprised every day I was there and learnt so much. The first being the name. From the air, its shape resembles a crocodile, so the locals call it El Cocodrilo, but we know it as Cuba. Even though formal independence of Cuba came in 1902, it has had its share of troubles over the years. There have been rebellions, revolutions, invasions, and even a missile crisis. Cuba seems to be a third world country, and as a result of a nearly 50-year-long blockade and embargo imposed by the USA, it is a country stuck in time. Citizens of America still need government permission to visit Cuba, and surprisingly is one of 2 countries in the world where Coca-Cola is officially forbidden to be sold, the other being North Korea. The first thing visitors notice is the Che Guevara famous portrait. Che was a revolutionary who joined forces with Fidel Castro and seems to be a revered person with the Cubans. His face is depicted everywhere on the island, and his memory lives on in so many ways. At the Giron Museum near the Bay of Pigs, there is a tangible sense of history about Che and the Cold War episode. Revolutionary squares are everywhere, and they are all housed with fantastic sculptures in some way or another. The Che Guevara Mausoleum at Santa Clara is a massive area and is his resting place. But Che was only part of the Cuban Revolution. It was led by Fidel Castro, who managed to overthrow the brutal government of Fulgencio Batista, and Fidel then went on to rule Cuba from 1959 to 2008, with his brother Raúl succeeding him. The effect Fidel made to Cuba and its people was enormous in many ways. Cuba has one of the best free health care systems in the world. However, the embargo has been a problem, as medical supplies are difficult to obtain, and very often relatives have to supply bed linen and sometimes medication. My biggest surprise was to find out that almost half the food the Cubans consumed came from a bodega. It is a government store where Cubans get the food for almost free. Every Cuban family can use a ration book in exchange for food every morning. These stores seem very sparse, and I found out that the Cubans use a different currency than the tourist. Theirs is national pesos, and the tourists use convertible pesos. All very strange. And I also found out that the average Cuban salary is about £30 a month. Children can be seen not only going to school, but playing games on the street, whether footy or card games. Sometimes it's dominoes, which is the national game of Cuba. Education is free, also mandatory for children from the ages of 6 to 16, and Cuba has one of the highest literacy rates in the world. 99% of Cubans are able to read and write. In fact, Fidel Castro turned all the barracks into schools, and the Moncado barracks still shows signs of the opening salvo of the 1953 Cuban Revolution as a reminder of the past. If you were passing a school at assembly time, you would hear a slogan being chanted by the children. Pioneers of communism, we will be like Che. Other noticeable things you see when visiting Cuba are the old cars. In reality, though, most Cubans don't own cars. Usually they use bicycles, bike taxis, and horse carriages to move around the town. I was amazed, though, to learn that the government provides housing, so Cubans do not have to pay taxes, rent, or mortgages. Properties, goods, and service taxes are zero. Cuban monthly bills for electricity, gas, and phone are mostly subsidized by the government. However, since 1997, Cubans are allowed to rent rooms in their houses for tourists to earn extra money. They are called casas, and this is the most common accommodation in Cuba. Another odd fact, until 2008, Cubans couldn't buy their own computers, and internet access in Cuba is still restricted and controlled by the government. Most Cubans do spend a portion of their monthly salary to supplement their allotment of rice, beans, bread, and other necessities. Before the revolution, farmers were squatters and used to give a third of every harvest to the local landowner. Now the peasant farmers own small plots. The tobacco and sugar crops are Cuba's top agricultural industries, and every tobacco plantation is committed to sell 90% of the harvested leaves to the government for a pre-arranged rate. The remaining 10% can be sold at their own price. Cuba does have its quirks. Things changed for the better whilst the Castro brothers were at the helm, which was almost 60 years. Their final resting place is Santiago de Cuba's Ifigenia Cemetery, which is guarded every day by 3 Cuban soldiers. They certainly left their mark on the island, shaping it into a one-party communist-run state. So it's no surprise that what they left behind is indelible. However, Fidel may now well be turning in his grave as the White House have started to reimpose sanctions. Can this be resolved so that Fidel and Che are left resting in peace on this island in the sun